why do you decandle pine? Letting the candles of a pine extend until July and then pruning them triggers a backbudding response in 2-needle pines such as the Scots Pine. And all along the branches you see new buds starting to appear. So go ahead, watch the video, see how I prune pines and get proper backbudding on your pines as well. In one of my video comments there was the question about decandling pines. How do you decandle pines? Why do you do it? What time do you do it? I have a couple of pines. This is one. You might recognize this. This is a Pinus sylvestris. The Scots Pine. See the variety waterii. And the waterii Scots Pine has fairly short needles and it doesn't grow all that strong. So it's a quite compact growing pine. And this pine has not been decandled. In fact, I'm not sure if you can tell. I think you can see up to here. But this branch is a sacrifice branch. What I want this trunk here to be thicker. The reason why I want it, it's quite thin at the base and there's a junction of 3. This junction is going to go eventually. There will be a short gin and nothing else. But for the first couple of years I'm going to let this one run. So I said I'm letting this top branch grow out so that it gets thicker. And the canopy below therefore has no shade because only in the top are branches. This gets lots of sun. The question is of course, why do you decandle pine? To understand that you have to realize there is 3 main groups of pines. Or actually I should say 4. Scots Pine belongs to the group of pines with 2 needles per cluster. So if you take off a set of needles, they come in pairs. Then there are, for instance, the white pines, the pentaphylla, and the Latin name already tells you, penta, 5, phylla, leaves. It is a pine in which the needles comes in clusters of 5. So that's the broad difference. There's 2 per cluster or 5 per cluster. You have pines such as the Scots Pine and they only grow 1 time a year. If I now say, okay, I'm going to clip off everything that's here, then I will not get a new set of needles at this point. In fact, there's a risk of the branch completely dying back and it not even setting buds. And then there's the double flush pines. The Japanese black pine is one of those examples. So let's put the needles next to each other. This is a black pine, waterii Scots Pine, Japanese white 5-needle pine. The reason for candle pruning between the single flush and the double flush pines is quite substantially different. So I'm going to first tell you a little bit about the black pines. The black pines, they can backbud quite easily. If you remove all current year's growth, if you do this by a black pine, normally they have quite long needles. You trim the new growth off somewhere during the current growing season. It will backbud from the cut area. The needles will be shorter this year because there's only a shorter season for the needles to grow. Scots Pine won't do that. Needle length control with the Scots Pine is really about ramification. It's about water and fertilizer. So why do you then prune Scots Pine? Candle pruning in Scots Pine is done for a number of reasons. The first reason is to induce backbudding. What you can see here on the branch, I have 2 small buds. Those were created last year and are now starting to push. And those were created last year when I did the initial wiring of this tree because I removed substantial amounts of foliage. In fact, that's what I'm going to do right now as well. So I look at this branch and I say, well, there's one bud there that's fairly okay, this is okay, and there's a fairly strong bud here. I am just going to... What is now going to happen is that, where is it? All this foliage that I just clipped off. This was using water, right? It was taking up water from the tree, it was asking for nutrients, it was asking for all sorts of things, and the roots were responding saying, yes, I've got this. I'm going to share with you all the resources that I have. So the roots are pumping. They're pumping water into the stems. What happens if you then take the end away? Yes, initially you might get a little bit of sap dripping there, but that will stop after a day or 2. But still there's a lot of pressure, water, in this branch because it had a very strong connection with the roots. What will happen is that in multiple spots on this branch you will get new buds to form. And with that I might next year be able to cut back to here. Or maybe even to here. Because my aim with this tree is not to have a very wide tree. I want it to be shallow, I want it to be compact, and I want all the foliage to sit here. So in order to do that I need to prune this tree back. Same thing here. There's a bud, there's still a bit of green. There's a new bud that formed this year. And I'm just going to say, you know what? You can do without the rest. Branch, 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 all sorts of buds, but it is low on the tree. So let's be conservative here. I'm just going to remove everything that was grown this year. I'm going to do this for the whole tree. I'm going to go through. I'm going to clip all these branches off that I think are unnecessary. And in fact, I'm going to take quite a bit of risk here in the top. because I really want a strong backbudding response. I know that this means that for this year I might get a few buds here, but not a lot of foliage. With watering, I'll now also have to be careful. The tree is going to use a lot less water. It has been well fertilized in spring. I am really hoping that this will give me the result that I'm hoping for. Second reason for pruning a pine, you want to balance the energy. If you leave a pine to grow, you don't do anything, then the lower branches will get weak or stay weak, and the upper branches will get a lot stronger, and they'll start growing. They'll start doing this. They'll shoot straight up in the air. They'll make growth. The Scots Pine, when it's healthy, will easily do 60 centimeters. That's 2 feet for the American viewers. That's not very desirable for bonsai, because only at the junctions, the points where it stops growing, normally you get side branches. They might have more than one push in a year and then you get another set of side branches, but typically the distance between branches on a Scots Pine gets really big if you just let it grow and it is healthy. So that's one of the reasons. You want to balance the energy. If you take off more from the top and less from the bottom, you leave the same amount of candle low on the branches as you have on the top, then this branch will be almost as strong as that branch. So that's a way that you can control the energy flow in the tree. So here there's another example. Look, there's 3 branches. This one is okay. This one I just pruned. This one I don't really need. So if I take this away, what's going to happen? Again, this big pump, the roots, they're pushing water in, right? The water comes up, it goes around, it goes through the branch, and it's servicing this branch. But in the profile of the tree, I don't need the branch. In ramification, I don't need the branch because I already have 2 branches. Now is a really good time to say, bye-bye. Let's continue. We go through here. There's a junction of 3 branches. There's a backbud here, there's a backbud there. This one as well. So slightly conservative. Remove this one. Reduce that one. Leave the rest. This does not look all that strong. It has grown a little bit, but not all that much. I see that there's 2 branches here. I'm just going to remove half of this candle. And I'm going to do the same thing here, because I don't believe that these are all that strong. Here on top, high up on the tree, thin out. There's a small bud coming here. There's lots of needles around it. I'm just going to reduce it substantially, pushing for new buds. Here there's a 3-way junction and I'm going to lose this whole thing. Same thing here. So this is a way that you, in a healthy pine, keep in mind this is very stressful for the tree. In a healthy pine, you can create backbudding on the branches. You can create tighter internodes, but this is not something that goes quickly. So what I'm cutting back now is not going to come back this year. Yes, this year I might get tiny little buds. I might get something like this starting this year, but not much more than that. So if you do this, be aware of the risk. It is going to take me 2 or 3 years of continuously pruning back these sort of stubs and then letting it grow out again. So probably I'll do it this year, but next year I'm just going to let the tree grow completely by itself and regain its strength. And I know there's going to be purists that say you cannot do this to a Scots Pine because it's a single flush pine. They're right, it's a single flush pine, but you can do this to a Scots Pine. It does create backbudding, but it is stressful. So if you're applying this technique, be conservative. Know what you're doing, and if you don't know what you're doing, basically this is a general rule of thumb, right? If you don't know what you're doing and you listen to someone on the internet who, let's face it, you've only seen online, be careful with what advice you follow. Decide for yourself whether you think that the person that is talking knows what they're talking about, and if not, don't follow their advice. Simple as that. If your tree is very valuable and you are concerned about what's being recommended, don't follow their advice. Not doing what I'm doing now is less of a risk than doing what I'm now, if you know what I mean. Anyway, almost through. As before, in the top I prune back stronger than in the bottom. I have confidence in the health of this tree. I know there's a couple of dead needles there. It was sitting in a bad position over winter. But in general, the tree is quite healthy and strong. It's pushing nicely. And I'm quite confident with me removing these sort of tips from the growth that it will result in backbudding. Let me show you the front. Foliage bed, top of the canopy, some branches in the back. Some of these will be removed. Unfortunately, last year during the styling I had to remove quite a bit here. And in the process I broke the branch down and this branch died off. So in fact I can just remove this, but not with these scissors. once my sacrifice branch here on the side is another meter taller, then I'll eventually take it off. By the time I hope that the base has swollen up a little bit more, and then it's not so obvious that this is the tri-trunk pine. It will just be a main trunk with a side branch, and eventually I might take off this whole section as well if the branches in the back develop better, so I can just move them into this space. So that's the future of this tree. I'm done pruning it, and I hope that there was some information that you liked. Let me know how you go. If you have a pine yourself, drop me a line in the comments, maybe next spring after you've seen the results of doing this. One thing to keep in mind, it is now late spring, so we still have the whole summer for this pine to build new buds, pop buds on the old branches, which in spring will be strong enough to then start growing. And next year I intend to let it grow for the season and not do any candle pruning at all, because by that time the tree might need a little bit of a boost in growth. This is a general rule of thumb. This is in general true, I think, if you are pruning trees. Trees need to be quite healthy. If you prune an unhealthy tree, you won't get the responses, you won't get the recovery that you normally would get on a healthy tree. And you might wonder, why does this work for him and not for me? And in general, the health of the tree is the key trigger to what you can do and what you cannot do. Happy pruning, keep growing bonsai. See you next time.